If you have a property that will make $1,000 as a long-term unfurnished, so that's $1,000 a month in rents, you can expect that same property other rental models that are not midterm rentals. If you are a money maximizing landlord, you are willing to. I'm going to start this video on when you might avoid midterm rentals by talking about what I personally like about furnished 30+ day rentals, so a midterm rental. I think this video is important because there are a few patterns I see with my consulting clients where midterm rentals don't work. And knowing about these patterns ahead of time will help you make an informed decision and hopefully avoid an expensive mistake if any of these sound like you or if these patterns sound familiar to you. If you are new here, I am Erin Spradlin. I work with landlords nationwide on getting their midterm rentals set up. If you learn anything during this video, please like it, subscribe if this content resonates with you, and if you want hand-holding through your first midterm rental, you can find a link for my services in the description and on the top comment of this video. Anyway, I have liked and we have had our own midterm rentals / furnished 30+ day rentals since 2017, and we have elected to keep our rentals as midterm rentals even when short-term vacation rentals were available to us. Meaning we've had rentals in cities where short-term rentals were still allowed, and we kept our properties as midterm rentals because we both like the experience as landlords a lot. So much so that I've written 3 books on the topic and have dedicated my entire career since 2020 to midterm rentals, hence this channel. And we like them for a lot of reasons, but to name a few, there was a gap in the market for these tenants. It is a nice tenant pool. There are elevated rents on midterm rentals, etc., etc. So a little context here. Counter to what many people think, short-term renters tend to do the least amount of damage to your property, and long-term unfurnished renters tend to do the most damage to your property. And then conversely, short-term vacation rentals require the most work from the landlord, and long-term unfurnished rentals require the least amount of work from the landlord. When you are trying to decide if a midterm rental or any rental model makes sense for you, the first thing you should do is ask yourself, do I care more about making money or do I care more about my lifestyle as a landlord? And to be transparent, I am a lifestyle landlord. If you are a money maximizing landlord, you are willing to put in a lot of extra effort for a little more revenue, and you probably want to do short-term rentals or rent by the room. And if you are a lifestyle landlord like myself, you don't have the time, you are more focused on getting your rents covered, a little cash flow, long-term appreciation, and easier tenants. And for this reason, you probably want to do long-term unfurnished rentals or a midterm 30+ day furnished rental. And I guess I'm curious from the audience, do you consider yourself more of a lifestyle landlord or a money maximizing landlord, and or do you consider yourself both? I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to this question. I also don't think that it's a permanent way of thinking either. Early in your investment career, you may have the time and energy to be a money maximizing landlord. And that type of landlord leans toward the harder rental models, so short-term vacation or rent by the room, versus if you are really busy or just see rentals as one aspect of your asset diversification, or your life is at a point where it may require more of you and you have less time for your rentals, you may want to do less work and are okay taking a little bit of a hit on the money. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because midterm rentals tend to be a medium amount of work and a medium amount of money. I think this is why they have such broad appeal and have become so popular. It's because they run down the middle, and for that reason, they have a large number of landlords that are interested in this model. They'll take the medium work and the medium money. And just some quick back of the napkin math here. If you have a property that will make $1,000 as a long-term unfurnished, so that's $1,000 a month in rents, you can expect that same property will make $1,500-ish as a midterm rental and $2,000 as a short-term vacation rental. Again, these are just rough numbers, and I know that some platforms promise more on that, and obviously design, location, and size all factor into how much you make. But this is what I've seen from my experience. And also, I happen to believe that vacancies are your biggest issue in the midterm rental space. So your place sitting unrented because the listing or the property is wrong, and also adhering to a certain price point on your rents that the market may be telling you you cannot get. So let's start with the first reason you would avoid a midterm rental. The first reason you would avoid a midterm rental is that you have a large property. Let's say 5 bedrooms or more, and it's a single family home. From my experience, large properties do better in other rental models that are not midterm rentals. Why is this? Well, larger properties have a natural tenant pool if they are long-term unfurnished. Families are the natural tenant pool because families need larger homes and stability. Bigger properties also do well as short-term vacation rentals. This is called the heads and beds model. And the reason it works is because you stuff a lot of beds into a big property and the guests basically crowdsource because they all want to share the same living space. Likewise, big properties do well as rent by the rooms, where the tenant pool is willing to sacrifice privacy because they are money motivated and want to save money by renting out a room in a larger property. All of these use cases make sense, but a midterm rental does not. And the reason bigger properties don't work as midterm rentals is because there's no natural tenant pool for larger properties in the midterm rental space. The midterm rental tenant pool tends to be transient, which means they don't have kids. Families need larger houses, but they need long-term houses and not just for a few months. And I don't personally believe that successful, well-paid nurses want 5 other roommates. Additionally, for those of you that are thinking, well, what about insurance claims? From what we've seen in the past year with the floods in North Carolina and the fires in LA, most people impacted by large-scale insurance claims or environmental events aren't looking for larger properties. You can see it here and here. This is the second situation that comes up with a lot of my consulting clients. I'd say that 60% of the time I advise people in this situation to not do a midterm rental, because when you look at midterm rentals closely, the situation just doesn't make sense for them. I'll explain it in a sec, but first a bit of context. When you have a short-term rental, so a vacation rental on Airbnb, and you stop doing short-term rentals because you are tired of the work, or the local regulation has limited rentals to 30 days or more, or your cleaner quit and you haven't found a good replacement, then it makes sense to move into the midterm rental space. And the reason it makes sense to move from a short-term rental to a midterm rental is because you already have the furniture, you already pay the utilities, and you likely already understand the platform. Now, you may not understand how to move your marketing, calendaring, and pricing strategy from short-term rentals on Airbnb to midterm rentals on Airbnb, but you have some sense of it. So it is a somewhat easy and somewhat natural switch from a short-term rental into a midterm rental, and lots of people do this, and lots of people are really happy when they do it. But when you don't want to start a midterm rental is when you have a successful, long-term, unfurnished property or a themed property. More on that in a bit. People will come to me and ask about moving their long-term unfurnished rental into a midterm furnished rental because they know the rent numbers are better in a midterm furnished rental over a long-term unfurnished rental. But a lot of landlords in this situation don't love it once they make the switch. And the reason they don't love it is because they often have to do the following. They have to learn a new platform. And here I'm talking about Airbnb, which can be time intensive and for some people frustrating. They have to buy the furniture, they have to pay for the utilities, and they have to position themselves for midterm rentals. So there's a lot of learning, and they had a successful rental property before, and now they're moving into something that they have to totally learn new and that they don't even know that they like, that's also costing them more money. And then finally, the third reason you would not want to move into a midterm rental is when you have limited interest in design and or no sense of design. I have supported and placed tenants for people that have properties that have dated furniture or need a refresh, but those hosts have a harder time finding tenants and they don't make as much money. A place that is blasé can be spruced up and customized to the tenant's taste when the tenant is bringing in the furniture. But that is not as much the case when the property is already furnished and the landlord had zero interest in design. Let me give you a real world example. I had a consulting call a few months back, and the gentleman had a basement apartment which was not renting. I pointed out that the main photo of his listing had a couch that looked dated and very well used. And he said, I got that couch for free from Facebook Marketplace and they delivered it to me. So I totally understand why people take a lot of pride out of buying used furniture, saving money on used furniture, and also limiting their carbon footprint by buying used. But the money he saved by acquiring that used couch probably cost him months of vacancy because his preferred tenant pool at his preferred price was not responding to that free couch, which ultimately made it not a free couch, but a very expensive couch. Please don't worry. I'm not saying you need to be a design expert, but you should be willing to spend a little money to bring the property up. Get it photographed well, and you should also stick to some basic design rules so the property has mass appeal. One other note here, don't do themes in midterm rentals. I am really sad to say that a few people I've worked with who took enormous pride in their property and designed it really well ended up failing because they did so with a theme. An example of this would be a tropical theme and a cold climate. It just doesn't land with the tenant base. It becomes a mismatch of the tenant's expectation. So even though the design was done really well, it turned off the tenants. A tropical oasis just doesn't click with someone looking for a 3-month stay starting in January in Buffalo. So stick to neutral colors, solid prints. Bigger is better. That's true for fake plants, TVs, carpets, couches, etc. And get rid of all the knickknacks and anything that's personal to you if you lived in the property before you're going to rent it out. Quick plug here, if you want to shop products that I have researched and recommend for your furnished rental, I do have a shop on Amazon and you can locate it here. And yes, I am an Amazon associate, which means I get a cut of whatever you buy, but that costs Amazon money. It doesn't cost you any money. And finally, midterm rentals have a lot of opportunity. It's a growing market because people pay for convenience and also don't like waste. And midterm rentals support both of these behavior patterns. If you want content on how to think about Furnished Finder, one of the leading platforms in the midterm rental space, I recommend this video.